Welcome to the Good Rookies podcast. My name's Faheem.
My name is Nelly J, and we are Good Rookies.
That's right.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? This is Good Rookies podcast. What it do? And guys, as you know, this is episode 15.
15.
So, y'all, we are just excited, right, Faheem? Because we got an amazing, extraordinary guest on the podcast today. So, Faheem, please introduce who we got.
All right, we have Scarborough native,
12
12 years NHL, is a goalie, CEO of No 5 Hole and Speaks Media Productions, color commentary for Hockey Night in Canada and the NHL Network, and the first Black hockey analyst in the world. Let's welcome Kevin Weeks to the podcast.
Kevin.
No.
What up, Kevin?
I'm great. Hey, listen, thank you both so much, man, for that kind intro. Thank you. Appreciate you. Everything's great. Family's good here in Jersey. Everybody's good. And family's good back in Canada, too, in the Caribbean. So hopefully the same for you and yours and for all the viewers and listeners that are tuning in. That's most important.
Thanks, Kevin, man. Honestly, bro, like, we're so pumped to have you on the podcast. Like, you embody what we like to talk about, examples in our community. Man's from Scarborough, you know what I'm saying? What you've done and what you're still doing is like breaking barriers for all of us, not just for the world, you know what I'm saying? So we're just honored to have you on the podcast. And, you know, like, I'm curious to know, like, what was it like playing hockey, like, back in the day? Because, you know, we have players coming out now talking about what they've experienced, but what was it like being the first Black analyst in the world? Like, what does that mean, like make you feel to know that you did break that barrier for Black people?
Thank you on that. I would say as far as the playing piece, what was cool was growing up back home, as you know, back in Toronto, especially Scarborough, but it's always very, very multicultural. So I grew up with people and I grew up playing with guys from different backgrounds. So even on my Toronto Red Wing, like elite team, we had guys from different backgrounds. So, you know, Anson Carter, who's also a Bajan, his parents are Bajan, to Luigi Calci, whose parents are Italian, to Paul D'Astasi, whose parents are Italian, to different players whose parents are from different parts of the world. So that was just natural because that was Toronto, and certainly that's Scarborough. So I was used to that. What was weird is some other people weren't used to it, but I was used to it. And what was interesting is I had, you know, different family members and stuff, not from our immediate family, not my parents or my sister, but different family members that would be like, why is he playing that? Why you haven't played hockey? It's a white man game. Why? He's not going to get anywhere with that game. And that was from early. And then what was interesting is from people that weren't Black or weren't Caribbean, I didn't get it as much when I was younger. And what was really cool as time went on, and there's a write-up in Toronto Star, there's a write-up in Toronto Sun. We went to another tournament, goalie of the tournament again, all-star team of the tournament again, all these different things, tournament MVP. Our team, more importantly, was winning. And then people were like, oh, okay, we see you. Oh, okay. And then when I got to high school in Bethune, back home in Scarborough, then people were starting, because, you know, I was a little bit closer to going to the OHL and playing junior and getting drafted or going to play college hockey here in the States. And then it started to kind of take shape. And then when I got drafted to the NHL, of course, and then when I started playing in the NHL, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, guy. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it was interesting. And then as far as on the TV side, what was really interesting is when I first started, I could have done Hockey Night in Canada one day a week. And I always had to thank Shirley Najak, who's Nigerian Indian from back home in Brampton. And he ran Hockey Night in Canada as well. And then Jeffrey Orridge did as well. A good friend of mine here from New York who ran CBC Sports back home, who went to Harvard, was the original legal counsel for the original Dream Team USA Basketball in Barcelona. Jeffrey's brilliant. He actually was just named CEO of TVO, TV Ontario back home.
No way.
Yeah, so props to Jeffrey and big ups to Jeffrey.
Big up Jeffrey.
Jeffrey's awesome.
Was he also the CFL?
Yes, CFL commissioner as well.
Commissioner, right.
Correct, wow. Correct. And Jeffrey's brilliant. And the CFL didn't really know what they had in him. Jeffrey's brilliant.
You lost out, man.
proper man, top shelf, super bright. I was actually, funny enough, I was just texting with him earlier today to congratulate him. And then on the Hockey Night in Canada side, my man, Mark Jacobson, white Jewish man from back home, who also hired me on NHL Network side, excuse me. So right away, I was doing Hockey Night in Canada and NHL Network. So I would go to the NHL Network studio at TSN back home, right across from Town Center, Scarborough Town Center.
Scarborough.
So right down the street from where I grew up, and then one exit from my parents' house now off Kennedy. So I would go there Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night on air. Friday, go to Pearson Airport, fly across country or across continent to do the West Coast game for Hockey Night in Canada, do the color, do the pregame, do the color, do the postgame with Scott Oak, fly home Sunday. Sunday morning, then I would go Monday morning, then I would go back to the CBC building on Front Street and go over tape with Shirelli to see what I could have done better.
Yeah.
So the big thing for me is I wanted to be as good as I could at the craft, which is why I wanted to be on the air as much as possible to shorten my learning curve. But I'm a businessman. I also want to make as much cream as possible, because if I was going to leave playing, venture down this new role of TV, I have mouths to feed. You know what I mean? Right. And I've got a family and I got a future to secure. And I wanted to make sure that those things were in place too. So I guess the biggest thing for me is in TV, I want it to be great as quickly as possible. But I always say, I always want to serve the game and grow the game. And I always want to see other people come after. So I was the first, but I don't want to be the last, and I'm not. You know, there's Anson Carter, Jamal Mayers, there's different people that are doing it as well, and that are doing well too. So that was the big thing for me, as it was when I was playing, just opening doors for other people, girls, boys, men, women, Caribbean, Russian, didn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Black, people of color, ladies, whatever the case may be. I knew there were other people coming after me, and I wanted them to have good opportunities as well.
But you know what? That's so important, because I look at you as the Obama of hockey. You know, the Obama of America, the president. You're like the Obama of the NHL. So like what you're doing for not only for your family, but for the people around you, and to break barriers. That's awesome. So sorry, Faheem, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Just
that's a good compliment. Thank you.
What you were mentioning in regards to hockey and outside of hockey, I'm just thinking, you've been blessed where the teams you played for outside the rink have been good places to be. Like you played in Tampa, you played in Miami for the Panthers, you played in North Carolina, even playing in New York. You played in New York for the Rangers, Islanders, New Jersey for the Devils. So I'm talking, there's hockey, and then there's like the life outside of hockey, like just, you know what I'm saying? It's not like you're stuck in a city where you play and outside there's no like nightlife, or there's no life outside of the game. Is there any city in particular that you played that outside of your job you just enjoyed really being?
I mean, Metro New York, since we live here the majority of the time now, Metro New York is awesome. There's only one New York City in the world.
Right.
And it's a lot of the best. You know, that's one of the great things about New York. Between us, you know, my girl and I, she has a really high level job as well, and she's great at what she does. She works on Madison Avenue in the city. She's huge in the global advertising, global marketing, and PR for a company that employs 20,000 people, and that does 20 billion euros a year in revenue. Wow. They also own Universal Music Group, Vivendi. She's on the Havas, which is her part of the agency, Havas Health and You, and their health agency. So where that's concerned, you know, we understand global business and global comms, global communications, as we all talk about, and marketing and stuff. So we're fluent in that here. But where I'm going with that is, in New York, you get a lot of the best. So whether it's, you know, her line of work, my line of sports and entertainment, finance, fashion, music, culture, food, you get a lot of the best. And that's what I love. And also representation too. You know what I mean? And representation. So, you know, there's women of color doing big things. There are Jewish women doing big things. There are Jewish men doing big things. There's LGBTQ people doing big things. There's fellow Black people that are doing big things. And it's great to see. So to your question, New York probably more so, Miami too, because Miami is also another cultural epicenter. And especially for those of us that have Caribbean roots, or you're Latin or Afro-Caribbean, it's such an eclectic mix down in Miami and South Florida. And I mean, Florida in general, but South Florida, I always say that's the Caribbean of North America, right?
Facts.
Right.
So, or it's the Latin America of North America.
Right.
You know what
It's funny, Kevin, because like you're
Yeah.
listing Miami,
Yeah.
New York, and you're from Toronto. Those are all the Caribbean hotspots. If you're emigrating
Yeah.
from any island, typically
Totally.
you end up in Florida, New York, or Toronto.
Right.
Correct. And I've lived in all of them. You know, I'm
Right.
sure you guys know.
Right.
And then having played and worked and personally lived in as well here in Metro New York and Miami and South Florida. So it's really cool that way, man, because the exposure that you get to other people that are doing big things. And also, as I said, representation, other people that look like you or other people that are up against it because they're LGBTQ plus, or, you know, whatever the case may be. As I said, they might be Jewish or they're Puerto Rican or they're East Indian or whatever the case may be. There's an acceptance. There's more of an acceptance and a wider acceptance for that. So to me, I always say I like to be where the fish are biting, and you know, I don't want to be on a pier with one fishing rod and one little bait worm and a hook and trying to catch one fish. I'd rather go out there like those guys from the kitchen, I might add, but I'd rather go out there like those guys on The Deadliest Catch with a big fishing boat and just catch as much as you can.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like get shrimp, get crab, get lobster, get sea bass, get everything.
Yeah.
So that's more my mind frame, where I like to see things from like a quantum global perspective and not like a myopic, like fixed mindset perspective.
Makes sense,
Right.
man. And you're in the best place for that, because New York has all of it. New Jersey area, they got everything there. So
Totally.
straight.
Totally. 100%. Yep.
So in regards to Mitchell Miller, Arizona, he was their number 11 pick.
Yeah, he was their 4th round pick, but he was the first pick that they had in this draft. Yeah, he was their first pick that they had in this draft. So
111, right. Okay.
Yeah, because they had some sanctions imposed on them for some misdoings, put it that way.
So when we hear about that story, what happened in his past, and we think of the climate of what's happening, not just with hockey, but outside of hockey in regards to the race relation situation. What's your take in regards to Arizona first initially going ahead with the draft, and then because of pressure from the outside, having to rescind that?
I would say this, and you know, being the face of the league's network, and we're a $5 billion league, and being the lead analyst and also an NHL ambassador, I would say this: they missed the drumbeat on that.
Right.
Like they just missed the drumbeat. Like it's inexcusable, and that selection was inexcusable, and it was inexcusable for a whole host of reasons. But one especially is the fact that they tried to slide it through and think nobody would know.
That was my problem. I saw. And I did see, can you confirm that, like, I read in The Athletic that teams didn't even want Mitchell because when they spoke to him about it, they felt that he wasn't really remorseful. So can you talk on just like that experience? And you know, drafting is different. I mean, I've never been drafted before, but I believe these teams do vet players, right, prior to drafting. Yeah,
I mean, the top teams do, and the smart teams do with great management groups. And listen, man, I got to tell you something. Like, as a black player, players in general, but especially as a black player in a white sport and a goalie, like I was hyper scrutinized for everything. How I look, how are my eyes looking? Am I wearing Jordans to practice? Am I not? Is it this? Is it that? Is it not? Like, I literally have said time and again, for me to be a black goalie and play in the NHL, I literally walked on a high wire, high rope across Niagara Falls with no safety net.
Speak
that was the reality. Right. So, and there are a lot of great moments, and I love the sport. You know that I love the game. I love the game, everything about it. Like long before I got any checks playing it or working in TV. So I'll preface it from that standpoint. But the reality is, I was always hyper scrutinized, hyper evaluated. And I remember being at Sandhurst Circle and White Heather Boulevard in Scarborough, at our old house, and I was actually funny. I was on another podcast before I came on here. I was telling the two hosts, one of my former teammates, Mike Motto, here in Jersey with the Devils. I was talking about this. When you take the bus, for those of us that did, at the same time, and you go to the same bus shelter when it's minus 20 Celsius, you know who the people are that take the bus at that time.
Absolutely.
especially at your familiar stops, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting for the Finch 39A, 39C, or B.
Yo, speak on it. It's still there. Right? Same bus route.
I'm waiting for that on Sandhurst Circle, the intersection of Sandhurst and White Heather, in that bus shelter.
Yeah.
And I knew them. I knew the moms. I knew the grandmas. I knew the fellow young students, female, male, whatever. Older gentlemen, younger. And I would see mans there in like trench coats. And I know that they were scouts. And they wanted to see how I was conducting myself off the ice.
Wow.
Who I was rolling with, who I wasn't rolling with. Am I all that I appear to be when I'm at the rink? Okay, I've got a great household. I got a great, great parents, 2-parent household. My sister's great. Is he all that? We're not really sure. We got to see. Wow. So that love, it was cool because I was raised properly from home, from my parents.
Right.
And, my aunts and uncles, and spending time with them too, and cousins and stuff, and that were older than me. But I was raised properly, so it wasn't a thing. But that brings me to, how then is that me as a top prospect, and I was ranked in the top 25 for the 1993 draft, and second goalie ranked in that draft. How does this guy get drafted?
Facts.
Like, I can tell you, there's so many great players and so many good players that played in the league for a long time. They don't all have to be superstars, but keep this in mind. We have 7.8 billion people on planet Earth. There's only 750 NHL players in the world. Like, we're an exclusive club. And I say they now because they're playing. That's a real exclusive club. So the fact that this guy had an opportunity to get drafted and wasn't really accountable, wasn't really remorseful, to your point, Janelle, it's inexcusable. And the fact that Arizona drafted him was inexcusable. The fact that they tried to pass it through was inexcusable. And then they felt pressured socially to disassociate the relationship and terminate the relationship with him shortly after them drafting him, thinking that people wouldn't have known. Listen, here's the thing. We have a certain code of conduct in our sport and in our league. And it's not to say all of us haven't made different mistakes along the way. There's written and unwritten rules. And I know this is a new ownership group, but they're a Latino ownership group.
Yes, I saw that.
And you're the first, Latino or people of color ownership group in the NHL in a majority position. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. And yeah, there's some things that you can learn along the way because, there's no real manual, but this one was inexcusable. So let's hope from here. And this was their first draft pick with this regime.
Yes.
Out of the blocks, this is their first pick.
Wow.
So if you're going to say that you are advocating for, us BIPOC people of color all across the spectrum, whether you're Native American, Native Canadian, First Nations, whether you are Caribbean, whether you're Latino, whatever it is, Indian, Asian, wherever you land on that and or beyond, quite frankly, there's a lot of responsibility there as a Latino ownership group. And I hope that they can get it right as they go forward, because as I said to them before, the world is watching. And if you say that you're advocating on behalf of all of us, especially for those of us that are people of color and LGBTQ and everything else, then you have to do that. You know what I mean? And it's like me saying that I'm going to be on the air. Well, if I'm going to be on the air over my shoulder, you see our network on the NHL network, we're on in 160 countries. So if I'm going to be on the air, if I show up there in a Peli sweatsuit and a Coogee sweater or a FUBU hat, and I go on the air, everybody's going to be like, yo, where's this guy going? What's he doing? What's happening? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening? I got to make sure, and although most of my other colleagues everybody has their own way of preparing. A lot of people leave clothes at the studios and stuff, and they get dressed. When I leave here, my suit is on, my shirt's pressed, my cologne's fresh, my tie's ready, my pocket squares in, my tie bar's on, and my shoes are fresh. And I got my Armengildo Xenia bag over there, and I'm ready to roll. And I tell them I'm ready. So I'll show up there, let's go. And I always say this, turn the camera on, let's go. So that, to me, I learned that because I was raised that way. But I also, when you played, especially in my era, the older guys always used to say, be a pro. That's what they used to say when you're young. Right. Be a pro. This is the lifestyle. Be a pro. Yeah. So it's no different. That responsibility isn't only on the players. That also needs to be on senior executive leadership, ownership, senior management, and everybody else. So as I said, it was a bad transgression, and let's hope that for their sake and for our league's sake that they'll get it right as they go forward.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I definitely want to just say the victim's name, Isaiah Meyer Crothers. Yes. I think we focus a lot on Mitchell. I get it; he's a huge NHL player, but the victim, you know, he was a Black classmate with disabilities. For those who don't know what happened, this player, Miller's past, he actually admitted to calling him the N-word multiple times, assaulting him multiple times, as well as he took a lollipop and wiped it in a urinal in a bathroom and tricked him to lick the lollipop. So that's what this player did. It was well known amongst all the teams. A lot of teams actually wrote him off. A lot of teams were like, we're not drafting this guy because of what he did. Yeah. And, you know, Arizona did draft him. So, you know, Kevin, you made a great point. You know, definitely they missed the ball on this. And, you know, Joni, the mother, I think what really pushed it as well was that the mother wrote a letter, and her letter was so empowering. You should look it up. But her letter, literally, as an auntie, I'm not a mom, but as an auntie reading that letter, seeing how much pain she had. And she was even really kind in the letter. There was no cuss words. I'm like, if that was me, I would have put enough F-bombs in there. But she was very, I would have, like, real talk. I get it. Real talk. But she was just so great. She was graceful. She was like, you know what? My son is still suffering from this trauma. And remember, she said up to 2 years ago, he was still abusing my son 2 years ago. So this isn't like, you know, a 10 year, two decades ago. This happened 2 years ago. So just prayers up for that family. And I prayers up for Isaiah. I really hope that, you know, he's getting the help that he needs. And, you know, if your kids are being bullied, and I really think, Kevin, for me, I'm like, wow, what an example. I just hope that in the future, any athlete or anyone looking to play sports in the league, you know, I feel like a lot of Black players, like you said, are scrutinized, but I feel like white players, they're less scrutinized. So I'm hoping that this will be an example in all pro sports, not hockey, but everywhere, to say, hey, it doesn't matter how good you are in a sport, you also have to conduct yourself in a proper manner, like anyone else, right? So
no question. I'll piggyback that. I mean, you know, I've seen this before professionally and also personally too, where you have people that want to hold you to a higher standard, and then they'll hold you to a higher standard. And a lot of times they won't hold their own child to any standard, or their own, you know, or another player. But from a personal standpoint, I remember somebody asking me, they're like, are you a ruffian? And they were trying to joke around. They're like, are you a ruffian? And I was like, pardon? Like, are you a ruffian? And it's interesting because a lot of times when those people play that, it's their own kids and or their own, you know, family members that are getting DUIs, right, for driving under the influence, that are, before weed was legalized, that were smoking weed or doing these other things, or you know, spending time with people that are doing criminal activity and doing this different type of stuff. And yet still, or, okay, well, they're at the cottage, so this happened, so it's not a big deal. She's young, he's young, they're young. They didn't really know any better. But then they'd be quick to point out something happening with one of us or something happening at Carabana, and they'd be like, see, that's why. Well, yeah, but your son or your daughter or your niece or your nephew or their friends or their associates are doing a lot of the same things and or worse.
Right.
But conveniently, you're moving the goal line because accountability isn't anything that you're accustomed to. And now you're trying to play pin the tail on the donkey with somebody else. So, you know, I've had that. I've had that personally. I've had it professionally. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all people, man, and we're all God's children. And I was raised that way. And just try to treat people properly as best you can, but you have to stand up for yourself. And at times, what's difficult in standing up for yourself is, I remember being in Montreal, for example, and I love playing in Montreal. It's like playing at Manchester United at Old Trafford. Not that I played in the British Premier League, but I know I'm drawing that reference, prestige, history, and everything else. That's when you're playing the Montreal Canadiens. They've won 24, I believe, Stanley Cups, winningest team in NHL history, franchise-wise, same as the Yankees. There's just something special about Montreal, especially Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. And I remember during the playoffs in 2002, we lost a game to them in overtime. I was in the net. Yannick Perreault scores the game-winning goal for Montreal. And some brilliant fan, some beautiful person ends up throwing a banana at me as a racial epithet at an NHL Stanley Cup playoff game.
Wow.
Right? I'm playing for Carolina Hurricanes. That was our miracle spring. We would eventually go on to make the Stanley Cup. and play in the Stanley Cup that spring in 02.
Yes.
And now the hard thing is for me, as I come in the dressing room after the game, and fortunately I had amazing people on that Carolina Hurricanes team, from the TV crew, my man Trip Tracy, at the time John Forsland, to our general manager Jimmy Rutherford, who's Pittsburgh's GM. He's a Hall of Famer now. Our coach Paul Maurice, who coaches Winnipeg now. Rod Brindamore, who now coaches Carolina. Ron Francis, the GM in the new expansion team, Seattle. So I'm just giving you Brett Hedekin. Like, I'm giving you a little sample of the character that we had in that group. O'Neill, who does TSM back home. So when that happened, I chose, I addressed it in the media, but post game, I was very calm. I was very easy. I was very, diplomatic. But what if I was really real?
Yeah, like they're
like
lucky.
If I was really real, like if I was really, really real, would people have responded to the same way that I responded, or are you going to judge the fact that I'm real? Now you're mad. Is it an inconvenient truth? Now you'd be mad that I was real. Here's what you should be mad about. Don't do it in the first place.
Right.
Period.
And quite frankly, that fan should never be allowed in the NHL arena again. And Montreal then said, okay, well, whatever the gentleman's name is, you're not allowed in the building. Ever. You're not allowed here at the Bell Center ever again. That's it. Because imagine me going to a McDonald's in Times Square, and there's somebody that's of a different faith or a different background, or Hindu, Sikh, whatever, and I throw something at somebody in their place of work, like I'd be in jail. I'd be in one of the precincts in New York City.
Facts.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Right.
So to me, I just think that we're all people. We're all God's children, and I don't believe in the convenient/inconvenient kind of narrative. Like, facts are facts, and I think that's something where there's room for growth. And you guys talked about this off camera, in terms of it being teachable moments. Well, let's see if people can learn from these things as we go forward, because there's certainly way too many incidents. But let's see what people learn, specifically in this case around Coyotes. But in general, let's see if these are teachable moments for people as they go forward.
Well, one of the major, so Akeem Alou, what he's went through, that's, I'd have to say, like, when you say teachable moments, that's something that's, it's been like a big splash on the hockey world when it came out, right? He started the HDA, Hockey Diversity Association, him and Evander Kane, right? And so they have a pledge. So I just want to go over real quickly in regards to their pledge, in regards to the grassroots hockey development program that they have. So the pledge is with the NHL to get 35% in grassroots programs, 10% in youth scholarships, 10% executive and coaching training, 15% anti-racism education, 15% social justice initiatives, and 15% for administration. So they've had a pledge, and they've made it clear of their agenda of what they want to do with this. Now, what has happened is they had a relationship with the NHL, and then it broke off. At the time when I heard that, I was initially thinking, wow, like, how could the NHL do this, knowing the climate we're in right now with George Floyd happening and just the world, right? I later came out to find out that they're not the only ones that actually have a pledge or some kind of commitment with the NHL. There is also the PIC also, the Player Inclusion Committee. Can you maybe, just before we go down this road, just kind of at this point, just tell me a little bit about the Player Inclusion Committee, or what's with their affiliation with the NHL? Do you know anything about that? Or
sure. Okay. No, good question. So I guess I'll speak to the PIC first.
Okay.
That's a league, the Player Initiative Committee. That is a league-driven initiative, and it's co-chaired by Anson and PK. And we have different members on that council. I'm one of them. And the interesting thing about that is, again, that one's internal. That's a league-driven one. So that's just to clarify. Okay. So that's internal. We had a Zoom for that. We were on a Zoom 4 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, for our first initial meeting on that.
Okay.
Now to flip it back to you on the HDA, it's been pretty public about who they are, what they're doing, what their ambitions are.
Right.
And here's the way I'd preface this to you. I think at the end of the day, if I'll use Scarborough back home as an example, and not everybody would be able to relate to this, but let's say if we live at, say my parents live Kennedy and Huntingwood back home. Say somebody else, say my cousins and my aunt lives at Bellamy and Ellesmere, but they're trying to get down to the Air Canada Center, or Scotiabank Arena now as it's called, to watch me play against the Leafs, let's say. The route that, now the destination is Air Canada Center, or Scotiabank Arena as it's called now, right? That's the destination.
Right.
The route that my dad and my parents would take to get down there versus my aunt and my late uncle would take, or my cousin to get down there, would be different. So they want the same thing in terms of getting to the same destination, but the route might be different. So the route of getting there. So therein kind of lies some of the challenge, where I think ultimately the majority of people, and I can't speak for everybody, I think the majority of people want the same end result, but the challenge is everybody has an idea, or their own idea of how do you get there? What does that entail? What are you prioritizing versus what resources are allocated to that versus what? And I told you guys this on the start of the call. There are a lot of people that speak about racism in hockey, and there, a lot of us that are players of color or women and people of different backgrounds. Nobody's spoken on this on more platforms in the history of hockey than I have.
True.
And I've been to the White House on behalf of the league. I've spoken on Capitol Hill on behalf of the league. I've spoken on at the Congressional Black Caucus in Washington, D.C. as well on behalf of the league, to senators, to congresswomen, to congressmen, to the Pentagon, to I can name it all. And that's not me grandstanding. I'm just speaking the facts of those platforms and a lot of those conversations, let alone mainstream media. Forget, hockey media and sports media, but mainstream media as well. From Washington, from, LA Times, New York Times, like the Post. I'm talking like mainstream, Fox, Business, you name it. So I think the biggest thing that I come to with this, and the reason why I preface it that way for you, is that everybody has their own opinion of what the right route is, or what they think the most ideal route is to get to that end destination that we think is a common denominator for everybody, which is more inclusion, which is more participation, which is more representation, which is a higher level of cultural fluency, which is a safe environment for everybody, regardless of your background or gender or sexuality or religious faith, regardless of where you come from. And that's really the end. Those are a lot of the end goals, but people have different ideas of how to get there and what getting there looks like. And quite frankly, one of the challenges, respectfully, with the HDA is that the league, the Shield, is always going to be the league and the Shield.
Yeah, it's true.
Always. Our league's been here going on 103 years, right?
Right.
So the league and the Shield is the tip, as I say, the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the mountaintop, the tip of the pyramid. And it's always going to be that. So on a go forward basis, hopefully there's enough common ground, and you can, through that common ground, build more connective tissue. And hopefully through that, you can enact a lot of these things that we all want. But I would also put this on us though, too, as something, because a lot of the responsibility of that is in partnerships and allyship, right?
Right.
And I've had, me personally, I'm the most connected man in this sport, and certainly in media, in hockey, period. Because I'm not just talking to general managers because, I want to talk about a trade or this or how the team. I talk to players. So I talk to Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, all these different players, like women on the girls and women on the women's hockey side too, from Team Canada and U.S. Olympic team. To trainers, to massage therapists, to like position coaches, to agents, because I always want to make sure I'm accurate when I'm on there or when I'm on here with you.
Exactly.
And I want to get a cross section of all the different people, including Commissioner Bettman or Vegas's owner, Bill Foley. I want to get an accurate representation of facts and because I'm not going to go on TV. Like my mom says, don't go on TV and say anything foolish. So
Hey, it's true though.
Very direct,
It's true.
And my mom's
true.
true. She's right. Her and my dad are right when they say that. So all that to say, that level of allyship that I've seen from these players and people has been remarkable. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But for us as people, and certainly as Black people and people of color, we also have to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row.
Right.
And all of our intentions are clean. And we're not opportunistic for the wrong reasons or in the wrong ways either.
Or performative. Because I think that term came out this year, right?
Self-serving. Because what ends up happening is then you discredit yourself.
Facts.
It's right. So and when you're partnering with anybody, you want to maintain your level of credibility because it has been such a long road and it is such a hard road and it is such a tough journey. So when you're getting that empathy from people and that compassion from people, you only further want to build on that because you might only have one opportunity, right? And then some people may say, okay, I'm out. Oh, this isn't right, or that's not right. Okay, we're out. Or, you know what, I wanted to do this. All right, he's a fraud, or I don't really like the way she's going about it, or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden, you lose that potential allyship and partnership, which you can't have happen. So that's kind of an overview of where it is right now.
Yeah, and just to add on what you said, do you think, and this is like real talk here, do you think the NHL was being performative? Because when the NBA boycotted and they stopped their games, and the MLB did it right away, tennis did it right away, NHL was the last league to actually boycott. And I think a lot of folks were like, are they doing it because now they feel like they need to do it because everyone else is doing it? Or do you think they didn't have enough people of color in the NHL working to say, hey guys, let's stop it now? Like, what was why did NHL miss that mark when every other league stepped up but them at that time?
Fair question. I think, and I've said this to our league internally, I think we missed the boat initially. We did. We just didn't dance to the music that was being played initially. So that's a miss.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a fact. To add context to that though, pardon me for 1 second, we were the only league that had 2 simultaneous bubbles.
True. East and West.
Right. And you had a time shift of 2 hours because you have mountain time out west in Edmonton and Alberta. And then you have back east, and obviously in Toronto, you have Eastern Standard Time. So you had 2 bubbles going on. And we also had so many games per day. And a lot of those games at that time started in the afternoon too. So that was also a little bit of a snag in terms of the timing. Right. So you had those 2 different bubbles with players from, on both coasts of the country and different time zone and also different games throughout the course of the day, not only just all night games.
Yeah.
Right.
That kind of complicated a little bit, but here's what I would say, with all due respect to all the different players that I played with and, heroes that I played against, men that I had their hockey cards and their posters, and playing against Gretzky and Lemieux and all the greats and all these different people. As great as hockey players have been, I was never prouder than I was of this current group. Because once I got a background and what happened, and so many of the players, and not only are Black players, and Ryan Reeves was probably chief among them, who plays for Vegas, whose dad, Willard Reeves, played in the CFL for Winnipeg. Ryan Reeves was clearly, as a player of color and a Black player, he was very instrumental. But so too was Kevin Shattenkirk, who was his old teammate with St. Louis, who just won the Stanley Cup with Tampa. And there were a lot of other players and white players and European white players too that said, hey guys, we're with you guys, after they had their conference calls and they all got on, had these different calls and chat threads and text threads and WhatsApps. And they said, we're with you guys. We agree. We're standing with you guys. And no disrespect, in my era as a player, that would have never happened. None. It would have never happened.
No, you're right. Like I said this in a previous episode that I find the NHL in the last year and a half have been pretty conscious of trying to educate. I even saw them talking about the African Negro League in Nova Scotia, and I was like, "Am I on the right
hockey league,
page?"
Right?
I'm on Instagram. I'm hold up. Did they just post this? Am I on NHL Instagram? I was shocked because I mean, people weren't even aware of that, and they had never even spoken about it before. But I was like, wow, the NHL is really trying to educate their fans that, hey guys, we came from somewhere. This wasn't just from us. So totally. I'm hoping the NHL, I mean, we understand it takes a long time to get there, and the HGA, them leaving, I understand it wasn't because it was more like they didn't feel the NHL was doing enough. And you're the NHL right now, but you're working within the NHL as an ally and as a person of color, and so you're obviously trying to do your part as well. But I'm just hoping the NHL does keep this up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because the performative, doing it for a year and then going back to normal is not going to be okay. And I think nowadays, like these leagues, fans are holding them accountable. I have so many friends that are of South Asian background, Trini, Caribbean back, and they love hockey, like love hockey. Like our boy Danny G, huge hockey fan, and his parents are Trini. So hockey fans are from all walks of life, and if they want to keep those fans, as a part of the league, they have to try to make sure that they're accountable for their players. I saw the last year, like the amount of coaches that have been fired, let go from misconduct. Like a lot's been changing now, and I'm hoping that this old boys club is going to make people more accountable within the league. You know what I mean? So
no, you make great points, and I couldn't agree with you more. And listen, I'm a black man first. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm a Caribbean man. Like, my parents are both from Barbados, and they're both black. That's what's real. I grew up on rice and peas and stew beef and chicken and kingfish, and you know what I mean, and patties and roti and everything. So I grew up on that, and I always say I never forget where I come from, right? And be it our original neighborhood, St. Clair and Christie, and be it Scarborough, and my parents being Bajan. Unlike a lot of people, I've been to Barbados maybe 25 times. Like, that's a lot for somebody to go there.
That is a lot. More than me. I've been like 3 times.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm very in tune with my culture and very proud of who I am and where I'm from.
Right.
And in saying that, there is an inherent cultural fluency for me. So that's first and foremost. Then I became a hockey player. Now I'm a broadcaster, but I'm a person all the time, regardless of what I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm a person, right? And I'll never forget where I've come from and who my people are. And the fact that my dad worked at Applewitz Plantation back home in Barbados and didn't even want to move to Canada because he drove a Land Rover and he was the overseer on the plantation, and he worked at West Indies record label on the plantation as well. He didn't want to leave. My mom forced him to come to Canada. My mom sent for him. They went back home. She went back home. They got married. She was already here with my aunt and uncle. And when he came here, she told him he was coming, or when they back home, I should say, to Toronto. When they got there, she's already had an apartment set up. She already had all his immigration done. So that was a man that was like kicking and screaming to not want to leave, who worked on a plantation.
Right.
So on his own island. So nobody's going to come and tell me about race relations and culture and all these different things.
Right.
So I'm always big on that. And I really believe, not only from, a personal standpoint, but for anyone, to your point, you made great points in that. I say this all the time. Any fan, any player at any level, be it street hockey, recreation, you're playing at the Scarborough Y, you're playing here in New York and East Harlem in the schools, whatever it is, you have to value every person's experience in and around our sport and sport in general. And you have to value who they are as people, whether they're playing with a turban, Hindu, Sikh, whatever the case is. You have to value them. They need to feel valued. They need to feel safe. And they need to feel proud of who they are and their entire self. And they can't feel like shells of themselves because you're uncomfortable. Because here's the reality. I've seen a lot of people that I know and I played with and I played for that always tell me about how nice it is in the Caribbean. They always tell me that. And how much they love the people and how much they love the food and the culture. So, okay, well, I'm here. So,
hello.
You know what I mean? So don't just tell me that it's nice because you're on a catamaran, you're in St. Lucia, or you're in Guyana, you're in Trinidad, or you're in Jamaica, or wherever, and you're telling me how great it is. But now you want to kind of just like minimalize that. No, like, we're all here, and we can't afford to lose girls and boys and parents at arenas, or grandparents, family members. We can't afford to lose them at rinks, and we certainly don't want to lose them as fans, because I'll hit you with this fact, Faheem, and I'll kick it to you. Here in the US, Black and Latino spending are 1.5 trillion each. 3 trillion.
Wow.
And we've grown our league, and Commissioner Bettman's done an amazing job, and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, from where it was when Commissioner Bettman came in 93 around my draft year, to where it is now. We're a $5 billion league. And as I just told him the other day, I want us to be a $10 billion league.
Right.
But to get there, inclusion in capital letters with exclamation points is a huge part of that strategy.
Underlined.
Unless you don't want any of those dollars and any of that passion.
Like,
right.
What you want to do? What you want to do? Ooh, you know what I mean? Like, no salt and pepper over here, right? That's true.
100%. 100%. You know, and you look at my man Derek Jeter. You look at what Jeter just did with the Marlins. Remember when Jeter and his partner bought the Marlins? Everybody was hating on Derek Jeter as if today Derek Jeter didn't understand baseball, or he doesn't know how to be an executive. He was a face of the Yankees, the biggest storied baseball franchise for 20 years.
Yeah.
5 World Series. He moved to Tampa in the offseason because that's where the Yankee spring training complex is. Think of the amount of time that he spent there and the education that he got. But people really, it was veiled and not even that thinly. Who's Derek Jeter on an ownership group? Well, how's he going to be a CEO? Guess what? They made the playoffs this year. Donnie Mattingly was an NL National League Manager of the Year. They have all-star level players. They have award-winning players. And by the way, they just hired Kim Ng.
Right.
That's
the first female. Right.
And Asian. Like, big up to Derek Jeter and Kim Ng and the Marlins. So that's what I'm talking about. That's how those things and positive change, especially by way of accomplishment. But those two things go vis-a-vis with the decision makers, also the people that are doing the accomplishing, and an open mind. You need open-mindedness to make that type of history too. So props to them.
No doubt. So we have this segment called For the Culture. Nelly J, you want to lead us into that real quick?
For the culture. So this segment, we like to highlight things, people, places, anything for the culture. And we have 2 on deck today. The first one on deck, Akeem, I want to say his last name,
Alou, right?
Alou. He actually has the first minority team playing in a tournament this past summer. And I thought that was amazing. You know, growing up in Scarborough, I've never seen any hockey team with where the players are all people of color. Like, I was just so impressed with this grassroots program, because a lot of times, Kevin, you play hockey, but most people of color, like players, especially in Canada and the world, they play soccer, basketball, and then maybe NFL, but mostly soccer ball because it's cheaper. It's like, people from underprivileged homes buying a basketball and getting a hoop on areas easier than getting hockey equipment, right? So to tie this in with your apparel, a lot of times these young kids who love hockey can't play because their parents can't afford to play hockey. So I love the fact that he's doing this. So what's your thoughts on this entire grassroots program? And do you think we'll see more of this? And maybe is the NHL looking to try to fund more of these programs in the future? Stuff like this at all?
Yeah, no, great question. So props to Akeem for that. I will also point out my boy Jason Payne, Painter, Lucian from back home in North York, Leslie and Finch. He played pro for 14 years and never played in the NHL, but he played very long time pro as well. East Coast League, American League, IHL, hard minutes. He's a tough guy. And when he started his coaching career back home, he went back home to Toronto. He started coaching youth hockey back home. And he also had his Payne 67s teams. And now he's coaching in the East Coast League with Cincinnati, which is the Buffalo Sabres ECHL affiliate, by the way. So he's an assistant coach there and doing an amazing job.
Okay.
Live up to him.
That's awesome.
But he also had a similar team, I guess, if you will, to Akeem, where that's concerned. And then CJ Bowlers was doing that with a program that I was funding, the skills program, skills hockey with a Z, that I was underwriting. When I got to the league, I started underwriting that. And just for a little background on this, especially for our viewer listeners, this was mid to late 90s. And I was an original student of the first one at Malvern Arena. When I got to the NHL, I started underwriting it myself. And a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people back home in our media back in Toronto, how can you do this? How can you have a minority focused camp? How can you have a new Canadians camp? Well, isn't that racism? Isn't that whatever? I'm like, I'm here to do a couple things, which I'll always do. Serve and grow the game.
Right.
And the culture. And I don't forget where I came from. So I was literally, my Royal Bank at the time, credit cards would show, my Royal Bank checks at the time would show. And from that camp, came the likes of PK Subban, Devontae Smith-Pelly, Stanley Cup champ, Wayne Simmons, Chris Stewart, Anthony Stewart. I can go down Joel Ward. Trevor Daley, 2-time Stanley Cup champ. Congrats to Trevor. He just retired, and he's going to join the Pittsburgh Penguins front office as well.
Oh, awesome. And congrats.
2-time Stanley Cup champ. There are over 11 players from my program that played in the NHL. And I took a lot of heat for it at the time. So in short, I'm happy to see what Akeem is doing where that's concerned right now. It's nice because, listen, representation matters, right? And it doesn't matter. You might not always resonate with that player or this female Olympian or this female WNBA player or soccer player. You may or may not, or this Asian pitcher or whatever, but representation across all sectors matter. And I'm going to tell you guys this. When I went to the White House on behalf of the league, and I spoke with President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama, I told you guys earlier about the town center. Imagine me riding the McAllen 129 TTC bus to the town center to work out at the YMCA Scarborough Y when it was first opened. From then to going to Max Milk to buy a Tahiti treat or a jungle juice at Becker's.
Becker's.
To then go to buy my hockey cards and a bag of ketchup chips. To then I'm at the White House talking to them.
Man,
wow.
Humbling.
Okay. That's perspective.
Perspective.
That's perspective, right? And that's beyond full circle. Like that's like I felt like I walked on the moon. So for me to have those pictures, for me to have that interaction, or instances at the Pentagon or any of these different places, U.S. military bases, and just different stuff, it's mind-boggling when you think about it as a young Black kid from Scarborough.
Right.
And really, that doesn't begin and end with me.
No.
It's about force multiplying my experience in a way, hopefully, that I can continue to motivate not only kids, because we always talk about kids, but as adults, a lot of times we need motivation too.
Right.
And shine a little light on that.
Right.
For people at times that feel a little confused or maybe stuck or in a challenge or going through a health crisis or even now in the pandemic. So that's really what it's about for me.
So you mentioned about shining a light, and I think it's really good that you brought up these examples because Kimalu right now, due to the climate, he's really the face of what's happening. So it's really great because it didn't start with Akimalu. There's so much people before who've been doing this, right? So I mean, you gave some great insight in regards to things that have happened before that maybe didn't hit the media because of the fact that it wasn't on the climate. It was a different time, right?
Well, let's
the
be
climate
real,
was
Faheem.
different.
They were hating.
Right?
They were hating.
No,
on
hasn't.
Instagram.
I don't think it has.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying.
Right. So listen.
Hate was real though. The hate was real.
hey, both of you are right on that. Let me jump in because this is an open forum. The formality. Listen to me. Here's my thing, okay?
Hating things.
For the longest time, from a hockey standpoint, we had one narrative that is the dominant one all the time in hockey TV for years. It's a pickup truck. It's a Ford F-150 pickup truck going down a gravel road or going up a gravel road to a farmhouse behind a farm. And then they're going to say this player, because his parents are on a farm and they have 400 head of cattle in Saskatoon, this guy has character. He's a character. Yo, pardon? That's cool, but that's not the only narrative.
Right.
You know what I mean? My mom took the TTC in the cold, -20, from St. Clair and Christie to Domino's and Eglinton by the DVP every day.
And guys, that's Celsius, so that's probably like minus 45, 50 Fahrenheit. Okay.
Work every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's so I saw that character in my own household too. But if you guys are going to tell the story, a lot of times people don't tell the story. And there was only really one drumbeat, one narrative. So what I've enjoyed doing is highlighting the fact that we do have a lot of different women and men and grandparents and parents and siblings and aunts and uncles that have done a lot of great things in their own way to provide opportunity for their daughters and sons to play.
Right.
And there are a lot of different life stories where that's concerned. Let's tell them. So I want to tell them. So now I'm in a position to tell them for the last 11 years, you're not only hearing that one drum beat, you're going to hear more in a broader perspective, multi-dimensions, as opposed to that one dimension.
That's important. And listen, I what you said, you know, I think, first of all, like big up to your parents, because
So
being
grateful.
from the island, from Barbados, like, I could imagine you telling your parents, I want to play hockey. Excuse me? I want to play hockey, especially back in like the 80s, like I think what your first PB tournament was, what, in 89, like 80, right? So I could imagine them saying, Kevin, you want to play basketball? No. You want to play soccer? No. I want to play hockey, woman. Give me I could. So big up to your parents for even support, because that's even sometimes it's hard to get parents to support them in their dreams. So
a lot of times.
There's so many times. So like your cousins play hockey with you too growing up. Like pick up your entire family for being for the culture. So saying, hey, you know what? Playing hockey is beyond just race and creed. It's if you love it, you play it. Period. It doesn't matter where you're from or your background. So I'm happy your family noticed that and were aware of that from way before. Because I think now people are getting on that on that track. But back then, I could imagine how much people were like, playing hockey? Are you sure?
Right.
You gonna play that? You know, like
it's so true. Listen, I'm so grateful. Like, not for them and, you know, extended family, specifically my aunts, a couple of my aunts and uncles and some of my cousins and stuff that were supportive of that and that were cool and knew that it was cool and it was different, but knew it was cool and played street hockey themselves, brought me along, had me hang with them. You know, I remember even just outside of the hockey stuff too, like it's important to be around good people. And I always say, show me your friends, I show your future. Right. And if you're able to hang around people that are positive, that aren't into the wrong things, and whether it was even hanging around my cousins playing basketball around Scarborough or down in Parkdale, but they weren't doing the wrong things. Do you know what I mean? They were doing positive things. And I saw them, and they were older than me. Those guys are born in 67, 68, 66. I'm born in 75. So I was able to learn and be more mature. And then I played with guys that are older than myself too, growing up for the most part. So there's a lot of different people that deserve credit around kind of where I am today. And that's why I realized, like, the sun doesn't, you know, rise and set on me. And listen, a lot of people don't know this. You're talking about Akeem Alou. I remember talking to Akeem Alou. I was riding my bike from our house in Bayview, at Bayview, York Mills, down the hill to Leslie, when Akeem Alou called me and he was on his parents' couch with no team. No team. None. He had no team. He was sent home. And I, since we're talking about it, talked to this guy on the phone for like, I don't even know, 3 hours. Like, I must have gone from there to Don Mills back to Eglinton back, and literally back to Bayview to the crib on the phone with the guy the whole time with my headset in, my earphones. And basically, you know, I told him, I was like, listen, here's what I heard, here's what I know, here's how you have to roll. And if you want to get a job in this game, you want to play, I know you can play, I know you're big, I know you're fit, I know all these different things, but there's some things you have to clean up. And there's some things you have to be accountable for. Right? Because if I'm a GM, I'm not picking you up right now based on these things. And that's me being real. And I'm talking to you on the phone. Yeah. And I'm not saying that for any other reason. You just have to be real and respectful, because that's what we are as a culture too. We're real. We grew up with that. Yeah. And literally from there, I talked to Jay Feaster, who was our assistant GM in Tampa, who went on to win the Stanley Cup in Tampa in 2004 as their GM. Jay was the then GM of Calgary. How do you think Akeem Alou got to Calgary? I called Jay. I'm like, Jay, you guys don't have that many prospects in Calgary. Hey, man, give this kid a shot. Even send him to the East Coast League. Sign him to a 2-way minor league deal. Give him a shot. At the end of the season, where did he play? He played 5 games in Calgary. So he went from his parents' couch in Toronto to playing in the NHL in Calgary, right? He went to their AHL team in Abbotsford, BC. He got called up to the Flames. And really, I think he could have done more based on his skills. And it didn't happen. And, you know, I think some of those decisions, maybe if we can go in a time machine, maybe he'd do some things a little bit differently. But now he's on a new track, and this is his track now. So it just goes to show you, like, just like this, how things can happen and how much relationships matter and networking. And here's something I really want a lot of our listeners to get. As people of color, especially, we're very social and sociable. So, you know, we'll have the jam, we'll have the blocko, we'll have the backyard barbecue, we'll have all these different things, the family gatherings that, you know, we're very celebratory in terms of our music, and we're very festive in our culture. But we network socially, but we don't network necessarily professionally.
Pass the plug.
And this is exactly how I'm on and fortunate enough to be joining you on your podcast today, because you guys had the initiative and the ambition to ask my sister Renee, and she asked me, and I said, yeah, I'd love to. Right. So, but networking, and a lot of times if you hear successful, wealthy people, they'll tell you, show me your network and I'll show your net worth as well.
Right.
So true.
So networking is very critical, and not only for what you can get, because you don't always call in favors, but a lot of times more so what you can give, whether it's encouragement, whether it's a congratulatory text or whatever the case may be, and nurturing relationships. You have to have relationships. Even in something like sports, growing up, I was like, yo, I'm the best of the best. I'm one of the best of the best. I'm one of the best of the best. And I got to the NHL, I was like, whoop. Not only because I wasn't immediately one of the best of the best, I mean, I am, because I was one of the 60 goalies in the league in the world. But I realized how much relationships. Who's your agent? Does your agent know that GM? Does he know that owner? All those different dynamics.
So much more.
There's so much more to it. So that's the part of the sports and entertainment and business and all these different, lines of work. But universally, you have to be well networked. It's critical.
Right. Good point. You're talking about business and well network. You have no 5-hole apparel. And I want to get into that because that's definitely in our For the Culture segment right now. So what I do like, because I checked out some of the apparel online. I did see there's 2 things in particular. First of all, I'm a black hoodie guy always normally. Now I have the black t-shirt on, but I'm a black. So I went to your black hoodie. And I seen the no 5-hole. I like the brand you have.
Thank you.
I'm 6'4", slender. So I'm not an extra large. I'm a large. I went to large, and you're sold out. So that means business must be doing pretty good for you.
Very good for him to be sell out.
Let me bring you inside of it. So I appreciate you asking. Here's the thing. So really, the genesis of no 5-hole apparel was I wanted something that was for the culture, for the hockey culture, and also for goalies that a lot of other people didn't have. And it was like a blind segment, like a missed segment and hockey. I really feel like we didn't do enough around apparel and things of that nature. So it was a gap that I wanted to fill. That way, it was a creative kind of bone that I wanted to scratch, if you will. And what was really cool about it is we're able to connect with so many different, not only NHL players and female Olympians and stuff, but kids and families around the world that wore our product. Where we ran into a challenge in our supply chain was during COVID.
So
that kind of jacked us up right now. So from then we're going to pivot more into content. But it's we had a really good run. As of now, we're going to go in the direction of more content curation. That's a big thing, as you all are seeing right now. And then we'll kind of see where it goes from here.
So I did notice that you have no 5-hole. You have your blocker, glove, pads.
Funny.
And what I thought was cool was, so you had a nickname, I guess you were given as a younger goalie. Was it Black Panther?
Yeah, the Black Panther. Yeah.
Black Panther. Okay.
Love it. That's dope.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's so dope.
The original Black Panther. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And shout out to the great Chad Bozeman.
Yeah. Rest in peace, bro.
Yes.
Yeah. Rest in peace. Rest in power. Dude.
Rest in power.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I did notice that the design.
Yeah.
You specifically chose the Jordan 3s, right?
Yeah, totally.
And
MJ, man.
So it goes to show this one talking about in regards to crossing hockey into another market.
Sure.
You have urban culture.
Sure.
And having those pads and the glove and just the set with the Jordan 3s really spoke to like how personal you're making this brand to you. One other thing I want to mention also in regards to a t-shirt, you had a t-shirt that says "Puck Don't Lie."
Yes.
And ball is like, I'm serious, like love ball. And as we know, ball don't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I seen Puck Don't Lie, I was like, oh man. Part of the creative process was there. Were you part of that, or?
I was.
Nice.
So like for all my goalie equipment, my goalie mask, painting, artwork, anything,
Right.
I've always been a part of that. I've always been into the creative process, and I wasn't an art student back home at all. But I love art. I love design. I'm hyper detailed. Hyper detailed. I love interior design, exteriors, you name it. Like that's my thing. Fashion, all these different things, and food. I just like all the creative kind of vein where that's concerned on a visual medium. But on my goalie equipment specifically, that was a collaboration that we did with Vaughn Goalie Equipment. And it's funny because I'm actually going to do an Instagram live when we're done here with Vaughn Goalie Equipment too, with Mike Vaughn himself, who owns it. Oh, okay. And ironically, I'd been telling them, I was like, guys, like here's one of the challenges, pardon me, for hockey is, and I just told somebody from Vaughn this yesterday, I can't go into Whole Foods with a Vaughn no 5-0 goalie glove and just have it. Like people are gonna think something's wrong with me. I can't really rock that. You know what I mean? Like I can't really go into rock goalie pads and walk around and rock.
I mean, with COVID, people might think you're being safe. You know what I'm saying? Who
exactly,
knows?
Yeah, exactly, totally, right? So the weird thing about that, I told him like you have to have more brand extensions, and one of those things for me is obviously apparel, naturally, but I wanted to do something, and keen eye by you too, Faheem, to tie in some of the sneaker culture and the Jordan culture with goalie gear. Because a lot of the kids that are playing now and are playing minor hockey now, or youth sports and minor sports in general, a lot of those kids, their parents have more disposable income than ours did. And a lot of those kids are rocking Jordans and Kyries and LeBrons and Yeezys and stuff.
Right.
And a lot of these same hockey kids that don't necessarily have to look like me are rocking those as well. You know what I mean? And if you look at the Leafs, Austin Matthews is a huge sneakerhead. There's a lot of guys on the team. Willie Nylander, and I played with his dad, Mike. I remember Willie and his brother Alex when they would shoot on me after practice when we played for the Rangers. Willie Nylander's a big sneakerhead too. Morgan Rielly's a big Jordan head too for the Leafs. Just naming a couple names. So those are the NHL cats that I'm talking about. But I mean like little kids,
right,
that are playing pee-wee. Yep. You know what I mean? So because remember when we were younger, first of all, our parents didn't have, and for me, because I was playing elite level hockey, so I didn't get my first pair of Nikes until I was 14. And my mom, you'll love this. My mom went on a bus trip. A church bus trip to Buffalo.
Yo, those are the trips back in the day, though.
Right. Bus trips. Mom, please. I didn't ask for anything because I never want to put my parents in a hard spot because I was playing hockey, let alone goalie. And it's so expensive. I was like, Mom, if you see any Nike Air Assaults when you go to the store, the black, yellow, and the white ones, and they have like a snakeskin, or the red, white, and the blue ones in a snakeskin. My mom came home from that trip and she bought those. I slept with those. I slept with those, and I used to rock those for ball at Bethune. By the way, we won the city championships in Bethune in Scarborough, and I was, starting small forward. I used to rock those, but I would rock those like for ball practice, and then outdoor pickup ball too. If you had to be fresh, you know what I mean. Right. That was the one pair. So I know firsthand at that time, as a 14-year-old, what that felt like. So I really wanted to kind of infuse some of that into the design of that collaboration between No 5 Hole and Vaughn Goalie Equipment. So it was really cool. It was a fun project. I hope we could do more.
Nice.
That's awesome. And to close up for the culture, I want to have a statement that I think is so amazing from your brand, Kevin. So it says, No 5 Hole is more than a brand. We are a community. We understand and earned, not given, approach to clothing, design, athletics, and life. It's never too late to follow your dreams, and we strive to support and inspire you in every step of the way. What an amazing statement. And I really want to big up, because this is truly what the culture is about. So we're just so honored that you are doing this. And folks, once he gets more in stock, make sure you get your No 5 Hole shirts or jerseys. I'm getting a hoodie for sure. But, I got my hoodies as well. So big up No 5 Hole for sure.
I appreciate that. Listen, I'll leave you guys on this because this is going to be also very impactful for a lot of the listener viewers, right? So imagine me growing up in Scarborough. And I told you, when I was 6 years old at McMurray Public School down in St. Clair in Oakwood, my first teacher was Miss Mahar. We say grade 1 back home in Canada. Here in the US, we say first grade. And I drew myself playing in a game with an NHL scoreboard above me in the NHL logo at 6 years old. I knew I wanted to play in the NHL. no tsunami, no world war, no anything was stopping me from making the NHL. It was that clear from 6. All right. Along the way, I had all my favorite hockey players, my favorite goalies, other favorite athletes, but Michael Jordan was always my North Star. Always my North Star, my standard. And I was studying Jordan when people weren't studying him. They were rating him. Obviously, they knew he was the best and whatever, but I was studying him like on a granular level, okay?
Right.
And what's cool is I remember when I played in the minors in North Carolina, you mentioned earlier, my first year pro out of junior, out of the OHL. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm at a restaurant, and I meet this gentleman named Fred Whitfield, who him and MJ have been friends since they're like 14, 15 years old. And they went to basketball camp together in Carolina as kids, as teens. And I remember talking to Fred. I'm like, oh my God, man, Fred's a lawyer, very successful, super bright, was a partner in a law firm in Greensboro. And I'm talking to him like, yeah, MJ's my guy. He's like, MJ's your guy? That's my boy, man. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, MJ's my dog, man. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, we grew up. Now I'm 20 at this time. He's like, we grew up together, this, that, and the other, basketball camp. So he goes, our thing with MJ is to be the best in the world and inspire billions of people around the world. But we want his Jordan brand, when he's done shooting the basketball, we want it to be worth way more money and earn way more money than he did off the floor than he did on the floor. And I was 20 years old. So that opened my eyes. So next thing you know, I'm at Fred Whitfield's golf tournament, the Hoop Tea Classic, and he has an amazing, so I think it's been like 30 years, his golf tournament, charity, his basketball camp. Who's there? Jordan's there. And I'm there watching, like, just watching. I've never seen anything like that before.
Right.
And I'm watching him, and I'm a celebrity playing in the tournament, and then I played in some of Michael's tournaments. I was at his Air Jordan party a couple of different years and stuff. And just seeing how he operated, it was so enlightening. And it was literally like university, college, all these different things into one, just watching and being around him in person. So once The Last Dance came out and everybody got to see that, it's like, wow. And I also spoke and on my Instagram Live at Kev Weeks, I did an interview with his trainer, Tim Grover, the author of Relentless.
Yeah.
And MJ had Tim.
He's ingenious. He trained him from basketball to baseball. I was like, to basketball. I was like, that is so hard to do. Like the muscles, like movement, and like that's crazy how he did that for MJ.
Beyond. And then when MJ was done, he passed him on to, God bless his soul, to Kobe. And then Tim TG trained Kobe for years, Dwayne Wade, all these different guys. So the reason why I just share that with you again, it's like the power of infinite possibilities. I went from playing, basketball at Bethune for the Bethune Bears in Scarborough in high school before I left to go play in the OHL, and playing at all the courts back home, all the outdoor courts, Kennedy and Eglinton, playing Cedar Bray runs at at Albert Campbell. Like I had to from there to hoping, to reading Jet and Ebony at school, in the library, anything Jordan was on. Okay, NBA Inside stuff. Ahmad Rashad, because I was watching. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I went there back home, where Chicago seemed like it was on Mars,
Right.
to literally being around him, meeting him,
That's
spending
so
time.
amazing.
So that's why I talk about the power of infinite possibilities for anybody that's tuning in here. It doesn't matter what age you are. And speak of representation, speak of possibility. And it's not always people that look like us that we have to aspire towards. There's a lot of other people that do great things too. Look what Jeff Bezos did with a book club.
True.
Right. Literally.
It's so true.
There's so many people that are amazing in what they do. Look at Drizzy back home. Look at Drake back home.
Right.
Yeah.
People were clowning Drake back home, by the way.
Right.
People were clowning Drake.
They were clowning him, and they were before Drake
guy
got
from
big.
Degrassi?
They were clowning him hard before he got
They were
big.
clowning him hard. Like, this guy's on Degrassi.
Yeah.
Who's this guy?
Yep.
Right.
Look
So
at him
again,
now.
Yeah.
Right.
The power of positive possibilities and infinite possibilities for anybody that's tuned in. It's real. It's tangible. Again, I remember what it was like to have 10 cents in my pocket and go to Max Milk. Am I getting hot lips?
Max
am I getting
Milk?
a sour key? Am I getting a sweet tart? Like, what am I? I can't get a fun dip. Like, I totally remember that. I totally
Talk
remember
the
that.
things,
Now.
Kevin. Talk the things. It's so true.
Yeah. Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean? me playing in Madison Square Garden or being on your TV from Madison Square Garden or
Right.
from Vegas for the Stanley Cup final 2 years ago, whatever. It's just all these things are possible, man. They are.
No.
Big it
Well
up,
said.
man.
Well said. On the way out, let's go
Yeah.
to That's
Absurd.
Absurd.
So
Let's
we
go.
want to talk about the most
Let's go.
absurd thing that we saw or anything that was absurd for the week. So Faheem, what was absurd, bro? What was absurd?
The Edmonton Oilers, they've been sued by the Dallas Hotel
Yeah.
for allegedly bouncing a $28,000 check following a team stay in December. And the hotel also says that they owe them another $27,000 for a stay
grand
In March.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say
50 grand in total in March.
Absurd.
That's
Bro,
absurd.
That's absurd. First of all, you're an NHL player and it's a team, right? So first of all, whose credit card are they using? And because I figured they're paying with a credit card, a black, maybe an Amex, like, so bro, pay your credit card bills or get a new accountant. Like, what's happening? How are you bouncing checks, bro? And you're a professional player.
Right.
Absurd.
Oh, that's funny. That is absurd, though. That's absurd. That is. I second that.
Any experiences that you might have had as a player going out to eat and dining and dashing?
Dining and dashing, no. But one of my friends back home, one of my friends who will remain nameless, and he's Russian Jewish, so I don't want to give away the rest of it. But
okay,
he would dine and dash sometimes, and we're like, bro, what are you doing? So that was when we were kids, but still dibby. But here's one that's absurd. So we're at Target down in Miami, down Design District, trying to get our gate down there set up and try to get a couple essentials. I don't know how many credit cards I have in my thing, whatever, 6, 7, 8. And I'm at Target. So we get to the Target now, to the cash, and we needed a TV, at least one for the main floor, this, that, whatever. We got a whole, 4 carts. Carts are rammed. And we get there. Sorry, sir. Sorry, Mr. Weeks. What do you mean? I've got an X amount of whatever, thousands of dollars on this card. Sorry, Mr. Weeks. Try another card. Sorry, Mr. Weeks. So anyways.
That's a loud beep too.
So I'm on the phone with Chase Bank. I'm like, are you guys serious? Like, what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. So my girl, Megan, she pulls out her credit card. She's like, yeah, man, it's good. So for me, that was absurd.
But it's so funny because like you mentioned, right? My thing is this, you bounce. First of all, this poor hotel is now in what? Like 60K in debt because this team, their checks are bouncing. Like, it's not like, that's like, so like, first of all, who actually puts a check? Who writes a check, first of all, for any purchase nowadays? And the fact that it's bouncing twice, like, that's embarrassing.
That's bootleg. That's a bad look. That's bootleg. I told you, the guys always used to say, you got to be a pro.
You got to.
And you can't only be a pro when you're playing just for playing or practicing. You got to be a pro
right.
all the way around. So that was not a pro. That was an am move. Right?
So I got one last thing for you here, Kev.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a $50,000 question I have for you right now.
Sure.
Okay. You get this right, you're good money. If you get this wrong, you have to pay the bill for the Oilers.
Right, so, Oilers, I gotta say, the Oilers are always the most diverse team. They are this year too. They've always had brothers on their team, but I wasn't one of them. So I don't know if I'm gonna pay, but go ahead though. Go ahead.
All right. So growing up, I think first of all, my favorite team, period. Like, I'm a ball guy, but my favorite team is the 84, 85, the Gretzky Oilers. It's my favorite team of all time, like even more than the Jordan, Pippen, like me personally. Just, and it comes to time. I was like 10, 11 at the time. Huge Gretzky fan. So I was really into hockey at that time, and that Oilers team was special. So the reason why I bring that up is this. How about you? We're around the same age. So would that Oilers team, did it really affect you? Were you like a big Oilers fan back in the day, Gretzky?
Yeah, I was a Leafs man because of growing up TO, but I was an Oilers fan because of Grant and Gretzky and everybody else. And you know what's cool is I played with Mess in Vancouver.
Oh, so I got 1 year in Vancouver.
And
wow.
And I played against almost all those guys. I played against Gretz. I played against Mess, but played with him. Played against my hero and Grant Fuhrer. So I got to play against a lot of those guys. It was pretty trippy. Similar age as you and having all their hockey cards.
Right.
Actually, Wayne Gretzky was playing with the Rangers. Right? Gretzky was playing with the Rangers, and we played them. I want to say it was 97 or 98. I was a call-up with Florida. I was young, just trying to get my feet wet in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost them 4-3. Gretzky was in on all 4 goals. He scored a goal, had 3 points.
Oh.
Yo, and you want to know a G move? After the game, we're working out, like we're doing the exercise bike programs outside of the dressing room in the old Miami Arena where we used to play, us in the Heat. So Gretzky comes by, he's like, "Good job out there tonight, kid," and just kept walking. Man just put up 4 points. So he clowned me. He was trying to be nice about it, but he clowned me. He was in on all 4 goals. He scored a goal and had 3 assists. He clowned me. He's like, "Yeah, nice job out there tonight, kid." And he just kept walking to the bus. It was funny, man. It was funny.
Oh, nice.
I just want to get that in.
Nice. So here's a question I got for you. Ready?
Yeah, what do you got?
Of that 84 team that won the cup, how many, well, actually, I'll give you the number. There's 7 Hall of Famers on that team. Can you name them?
Yeah, I will start with, can I name them? I don't know, but I will start with Gretz, Mess,
right,
Fierzy,
right,
Paul Coffey,
right,
Gretz, Mess, Fierzy, Paul Coffey, Yeri Curry,
right.
Hold on one sec.
You can call a lifeline if you want.
Glenn Anderson.
Whoa, yes, one more.
And hold on one sec. Don't out me yet. Don't out me yet. Glenn Anderson. Who am I missing up front?
I'll give you.
Yeah. Call a lifeline.
Yeah. I'll give you a hint. Ready?
Yeah, give me a hint.
He was a defenseman.
Kevin Lowe.
Ah, you're a G. You're a G.
That was so hard. I don't know how you did that, bro.
You saved yourself 50 grand. You saved yourself 50 grand.
Yo, I don't know how you did that, bro.
I might have to do a little.
You're a true man, yo.
Now. I might have to give him a line of credit still. High interest rate, though.
You got it. So sorry, Edmonton Oilers. Pay your damn bill, y'all. Pay your bill, okay? Kevin ain't paying for it. He ain't paying it.
I'm not paying that. I'm not paying it. I'll go to bat for you, but I'm not paying that.
You got your back, but he ain't paying for it.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Well, guys, that was the episode 15.
That's episode 15.
That was
awesome.
Thank you both.
How was it for you, Kevin? Was a good time for you?
No, honestly, it was amazing. You guys are great. Big ups and all the great things that you're doing. And what I really love about it too is you're really highlighting a lot of the life stuff, because one of the things that gets missed with sports and entertainment is a life piece.
Right.
And especially on the culture, those things often get missed because it's just kind of lost in the cycle and the wash in the cycle. So really appreciate you both diving into that and having me on the platform. And I think that's huge, because I always say inside of every uniform, whether you're an athlete or you're an entertainer, you're Lady Gaga, you're Beyonce, you're Jay-Z, whoever, like inside of every uniform is a person.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's really cool to be able to connect. And I feel like that's something that we miss in sports, is other sports do it a little bit more than we do, is telling a lot more of the life stories.
Yeah.
Because really that's what resonates with people. You know, there's a great article, actually, since I was talking about MJ earlier, there's a great article in ESPN. I don't know if it was in the Undefeated or whatever, but in ESPN, check for it. And it was right around the time of The Last Dance. And it talks about Jordan and his grandparents and how influential his grandparents were. And the fact that there's like a Southern practice, but they also do it in Africa, where they eat clay, like from the soil, like clay. Literally, because it's high in nutrients and high in iron and stuff.
Wow.
That's very true.
Okay.
It is true.
Oh,
Actually, as a kid, I used to eat a lot
that.
of the soil. My parents got mad at me, but I used to eat soil on the ground as a kid. I don't know why, but I liked it.
And Jordan and his grandparents would eat clay. So it's pretty interesting that you see somebody that used to eat clay in the South with his grandparents that's a global icon and worth $2 billion and owns a team and has a clothing line that does $3 billion. And the best basketball player in the history of the world and one of the best athletes in the history of the world. It's pretty amazing stuff.
True
That's
indeed.
So awesome.
Crazy, huh? So that's why I like
So
you guys
crazy.
covering the depth and all the different dimensions that you're covering. I think it's amazing. Keep up the great work, man.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you so much.
When you again.
No, for sure. We'd love to have you on again, for sure.
Come back.
So we actually,
sure.
we want to have you on again for sure. So we actually love to give our guests a chance to do a big shout out to like your family or friends. So who you want to shout out today, Kevin?
You know who I'm going to shout out? I'm going to shout out. We talked about my family a lot. My parents, my sister, Meg's family out in Calgary, my girl. But I really think that the biggest shout out right now is for every one of the viewer listeners here today. And what I want you all to realize is what a lot of society doesn't tell you, and what a lot of the schools that you have or do go to don't tell you, and what life doesn't tell you is, number one, you matter. And number two, all things are possible, all positive. I don't talk about no foolishness. You want to wrap all foolishness, you and I, we can't get down. But in the space of positivity and possibilities, honestly, every single viewer, listener that's here today, you have an aptitude to something, for something. You have a certain talent or a certain knack, and literally, you could be on public transit today, and you could be a CEO in Silicon Valley tomorrow. And I want you to think big. I don't want you to think in terms of convention, in terms of what everybody who looks like you or who sounds like you or who has your type of last name or who's from your neighborhood. I want you to think big and global. And you have to start thinking globally. I don't care if you're in Pickering. I don't care if you're in Dallas. I don't care if you're in Montreal. I don't care if you're in Vancouver or Colorado. You got to think global. We're in a global world now, and there's global opportunities now. So you got to see the world bigger than where you are. And that's one of the things I could tell you. Like when I was playing and dreaming and visualizing as a kid, I saw myself playing at Madison Square Garden. I saw myself playing at the old LA Forum, which is now Staples Center. I saw myself playing at Maple Leaf Gardens, which is now Scotiabank Arena. I saw it like 3D before it was 3D, 4K before it was 4K. And don't just stop at seeing it, but aspire towards it and put the work in. And great things will happen. We have a lot of very talented people out there that are going to listen and watch, both for people that look like us and don't, that are very talented or that have a lot of untapped potential, if you will. And I want to see you on CNBC. I want to see you on Bloomberg. I want to see you on whatever, in the NBA or wherever it is, or, running a $300 million business or owning a $300 million business. And the bigger you think and the bigger you dream, the more people are going to hate on you. And the more that happens, the more you know you're on the right road. Because if people aren't hating and they're not kind of salt you or trying to undermine, then you're not really where you could or should be. And remember this too. A lot of those great things in your potential that I talked about aren't all necessarily going to happen at your door. You got to be willing to leave to go ahead and make these things happen.
Meet halfway.
You have to. I went to Owen Sound, Ontario. I left Scarborough at 16, 17 to go to Owen Sound, 2.5 hours north of Toronto, up in the sticks. And Owen Sound was great. They were great to me. And, it's cottage country in the summer, but you don't play hockey in the summer. Like it's in the snow belt. And culturally, it was in a different place than Scarborough. There were only 5 Black people in the town at the time. But that's where I had to go. I had to go up there as part of my journey to getting where I wanted to get to, which is the NHL. And then from there, my last year, I had to go to Ottawa, which is cool, but still, far east, relatively speaking, the easternmost part of the province. And then different places. So realize that your journey if you want to get there and do it big, it's going to probably take you from where you are now. Unless what you're doing, the industry or the opportunity, the company that you launch or whatever it is where you are when you're listening. But more often than not, it's going to take you somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to that opportunity, because I've seen far too many people that I know and that I love that are like, oh man, I don't want to leave here. Oh man, I don't want to do that. Oh man. And it's not like they're already balling or they're already on. Do you know what I mean? Like, but they're leaving opportunities on the table. So I just want to really shout out everybody. I know people are going through a challenging, confusing, this makes sense, that doesn't make sense. The virus is this, but it's not that. What a year. The numbers are this, but they're not that. People are down. Some people have lost their jobs or their businesses and careers on hold, and maybe people are sick. But I just want to give people a real boost of encouragement of what's possible out there. And don't sell yourself short, man. Don't sell yourself short. That's the easy play. Don't sell yourself short. Be aspirational. That's my word. And ambitious. That's another one. Those are really key, man. And be a student. Always learn. Always want to learn. I told you guys before, I was going to high school to read Jet to see what they were saying about MJ.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or going and standing at the newsstand to read Sports Illustrated and not buy it to hear what they had to say. Hey, no standing around. You got to leave. Now you just point and click. It's easy. You know what I mean? You just Google.
That's so true, man.
There's so many resources. So continue to get after it and endeavor to do big things, man. It's worth it. Believe me.
Thank you, Kevin. Honestly, Kevin, that was a great, amazing shout out. Like, honestly, and just to shout you out, I want to shout you out, Kevin, for being on the podcast. I learned a lot. Like, I love that, you came with so much background information. Me being a casual NHL fan, but a lot of people watch the NHL and don't know what's really going on. So I'm happy to have you on here to kind of speak on the things that a lot of people in our community would want to know more about, but also understand what the NHL is doing. So shout out to you and to your work and to your family for supporting you in this journey that you're on. And, we hope you do more and big things. And my second shout out is just to our holiday gift drive, guys. We're doing, our goal is to hand out 300 gift bags to the homeless shelters downtown, men, women, and children. Please donate. We have the Amazon link gift list. So check us out on our Instagram to get more information, but let's try to give back this holiday season.
That's right. And I just want to shout out Kevin. Amazing. You really gave us the juice. You gave us a lot of insight into a lot of things that you really can't find on the internet, right? So I appreciate the honesty that you brought with us tonight, just for our viewers to actually take something with a lot of gems. Thank you. I also want to shout out No 5 Hole also. I will be checking back in for that hoodie and Puck Don't Lie about that shirt.
No lie, son. Puck no lie.
That's right. So definitely, but thanks for coming out. Let's throw this episode in the books, Nelly J.
Episode 15, y'all. Subscribe, like, share with a friend, to share with a friend, to share with a friend. That's it, y'all. Episode 15.
15. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, anywhere you want to catch a podcast, we're there for you. That's Good Rookies Podcast, episode 15, and we out. Peace.